don't know, should I?
I'm not going to be too mean. But the one thing that, that I wanted to say about mandating any kind of service learning is not for all those who teach. It is definitely not. It is a pedagogical method, but it's not for all teachers, most especially those faculty who are most comfortable with professing. It's just not something that's going to work for them. And it's not for all students either. I mean, some students really rebel at the thought of learning this way. And it's for a variety of reasons, but teachers don't like to lose control sometimes, and it gets messy when you get outside the four walls of a classroom. And there are some students that would rather answer a multiple choice test than get out and be messy in the community and be expected to critically analyze what they see going on in the community compared with what it is that they're reading in their textbooks. That's not their forte, and they don't want to participate in something like that. So I think we do have to leave it on a voluntary basis. The other thing I want to say that because service learning is a pedagogical method, that Campus Compact in the state of Louisiana and nationally wants this to be viewed as in the teaching component. If you're not going to give the equal weight to all areas, and that's not how it is currently in Louisiana, and it would take a long time to change that, we'd like to see it counted for teaching. And in areas that it results in good solid research, to be counted as research. And a lot of times it's not seeming to be seen that way. I also love hearing from this panel of presidents, but I'm challenging Brad O'Hara to have a panel of provosts the next time we do something like this.
We will do that.
Yeah, I agree.
The presidents support that too.
Let's sacrifice the provost.
We do have a lot of provosts here, though. So
That's right.
say that.
That is meaningful. Now, you can't say no to Steve Gruesbeck.
Well, you know, one of the things that I see is quite a few students, and I wonder if there's a student who would be interested in asking a question. We won't say what university you're from. Oh.
Hi, I'm Tiffany, and I'm from Northwestern State University. And to kind of piggyback off what she said, I think it goes in challenging, like, a fearless generation. Like, when you get out there and you help people, you feel something when you help somebody and you put a smile on their face. I mean, that might not be your comfort zone, but we need to challenge people to go outside of their comfort zone, because there are people that genuinely need help, whether that's teachers or students or whomever. Like, when you get out there and you help people and you bridge that gap between your community and whatever organization that you're a part of, change happens. And you need that positive change. You need to keep reinforcing that in each new generation that comes up, regardless of whether it's comfortable to you or not. And I feel like we need to just beat service learning, you know, over everyone's head constantly. That's just the way I feel.
Thank you.
Maybe she would be one of those faculty members of the future. That's right.
Well, anyone else? Oh, and then you.
I'm getting warnings from people. I'm Tim Getty. I read a book not too long ago, and it talked about the prosumer economy as opposed to the consumer economy, and this idea that there is this whole hidden economy that exists that is service-based, that there's no money exchanging hands, but it's parents taking their kids to soccer practice and everybody else's kid to soccer practice, or, you know, and those kind of things. So I wonder if there's a way to highlight, and I'd like to see your ideas on this, about that hidden kind of economy that exists, especially in college campuses, because it's so there, and it's not just service learning, but service learning makes up a huge component of the service that goes on in a university and in the classroom and even outside with its organizations, and maybe highlighting that and showing it in a new way instead of just reporting we did 20,000 hours of community service, which is amazing and grand and whatnot, but talk about impacts and maybe look at it in a new model. And I wonder how you all see that.
I'll try to tackle that one. I think, and I hear you, and it's a great point. Especially today, in today's world, when taxpayers are wondering why should we support public higher education, and if we can find a way, and I think this is what you're saying, I think it's an especially good point. If there's a way we can say this service learning had a value of not just this many hours, but this many dollars that save the taxpayers this much money. I mean, in some ways, you wish you didn't have to do that. You hate having to do that. But on the other hand, maybe we have to get at, look at how much this is worth, aside from the spiritual value and that we've been talking about and the intrinsic learning value. It's also worth a great deal of money to the economies of our regions for this kind of service learning to be going on. So we probably ought to be doing some calculating.
There was one right up here, and then I'm going to come back for these two. Here you go, Nadine.
Thanks, and thank you for allowing me as a guest to just comment and ask a question. I was thinking that service learning actually happens in a lot more places in higher education than in the academic affairs side of it. And in many places, there's some resentment that the faculty have taken credit for something that has been going on in student affairs for a very long time. And that service learning, the integration of learning and service, especially with student leadership development, is standard practice for student affairs. So I was thinking that maybe a unique role for the president is the weaving together of the two houses of the academy and modeling the kind of partnership that we hope between campus and community between the two houses of the academy. So that's one area where it seems like a president could make a difference in taking the leadership to recognize what happens and to help lead in creating synergy that's complementary energies between the two places so that there's both respect and helpfulness to each other. There are many students whose lives have been profoundly impacted who are hungry for the theoretical part on the academic side, and many who are really hungry for the experiential leadership side that have been awakened on the academic side. So I was thinking that leadership role, and if you could comment on that. And then just secondly, I think sometimes there are donors, and I know the presidents are fundraising, donors who don't want to give to any university unless it will have impact in the community. And I'm thinking that the development offices are not as conscious and self-aware that there are possibly donors out there who could be cultivated, who will want to provide pots of money for fellowships for faculty, pots of money for fellowships for student leadership development, even maybe a statewide search for graduate student interns that are on a competitive basis. That could be like a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 fellowship, and that donors are out there who'd be wanting to give if it were something like that. Because I think some of them are tired of buildings and bricks and things, and they couldn't afford that, but they could afford a $50,000 10-year thing for faculty fellowships or something. And I was wondering if your development offices were targeting those kinds of donors.
Interesting concept.
I'll take a stab at the first part. When I hired Steve Grusbeck to be our director of service learning a few years back. I think I gave the message to Steve that he was pretty well free to freelance at the university, and so when I mentioned the two female student athletes who were honored before, immediately after they were honored, I got Steve with them, got Steve with Jody Heineke, who is our senior women's administrator and associate AD, and she's also over academics and community service. Our people do a lot of things at Northwestern. I also got Steve involved with a minister friend of mine in the community, and just to meet him and just to talk. And Steve has since now he meets periodically with the Ministerial Alliance in the community, but that's grown and blossomed to include people from the sheriff's office and no telling what other groups out there. So I guess what I'm saying is I agree completely with you, and through our Greek organizations and other organizations at the university, all kinds of good things are going on that don't come under the carefully defined heading of service learning because of us normally thinking of that as being related to the teaching learning process for academic credit in a classroom. But I agree completely. I think we ought to look for any and every opportunity to include what I call civic engagement on the part of our students. I'll let somebody with money talk on the part about the giving to the foundation. Dr. Hubbard is an expert in that field.
You should attend some of our presidential meetings. This is tame. I'm probably going to give you a couple of answers that you don't want to hear. One, you'd be absolutely amazed if you were in our world and find out what people truly want to give to in a university. What we want them to give to and what they give to are entirely different things, okay? And that's sometimes depressing and frustrating that you can get money for things that are not central to the organization. So that's one concern I have. The other thing is I don't know your background. I'm assuming it's student development. But my master's degree in my early background is student development. And I know that over the course of our careers, we have been concerned about respect and position within the university. And I guess a long time ago, I put that aside, and it's the product of what we do. And the fact that service learning is evolving within the faculty, it's complementary to what we do, and we are changing the nature of our institutions. They're very different than they were when I started out in the 70s or some previous decade. It's changed dramatically. We can do more, but I'm just delighted that whatever the name is, that so large a percentage of faculty have come to embrace some of the things that we were doing back so long ago.